Okay, my name's Dave Keith, and I'm going to talk about gravity. Some off the wall, a little bit out of the norm type theories about gravity. Okay. Neil Armstrong at the 50th anniversary of NASA said there were many important discoveries to be made once the truth's protective layer has been removed. One of the astronauts described becoming weightless. He said it felt like when you go over a crest of a hill and you float up out of your seat. Now that means it's not gradual like you'd expect, it's instantaneous, which means that when you go up to a certain altitude in space, you become weightless. You're under 1G here, and you instantly become weightless. When you go back down, you instantly are under the influence of 1G. Okay, now that doesn't make any sense. That means either that the Earth's attractive gravity is being blocked or repulsive gravity is being created. I'm going to go with repulsive gravity is being created. I have a theory on that, and it has to do with the ionosphere and catalytic ozone, but I don't have access to that region of space, so I can't verify that theory. Okay, the second interesting aspect about gravity is that when the astronauts are in the space shuttle or in the space station, they are just floating around. Well, if the Earth's gravity is strong enough to pull on the moon, it should be able to at least pull the astronauts to the side of the space shuttle or the space station that's closest to the Earth. It should be pulling them, but it's not. Okay? So that leads me to believe that there's not an attractive force pulling on the astronauts, and there's not an attractive force pulling on the moon. Okay, so now we have the idea that gravity is a force of repulsion that's created in the atmosphere that we can reproduce. Now, for explanation purposes, I tell people it's a GED, a gravitational emitting diode, which is like a light emitting diode, an LED, but it's a gravity emitting diode. It probably isn't a gravity emitting diode, but it's something that emits gravity. Now, if you take a flying saucer and you put a gravity emitting field pushing the air off the top of the flying saucer, the air pressure on the bottom, which is 14.5 psi per square inch, will push the flying saucer into the air. Then if you want to go this way, you push the air off of this side of the craft. There's a vacuum there. The air on this side pushes the flying saucer in any direction you want it to go. Now, to restrain the passengers from the sharp turns and rapid acceleration that they're under, you put a gravitational field all around the passengers. And this gravitational field, computer controlled, it counteracts any movement, any sharp change in direction with the gravitational force, either a small gravitational force, a fraction of a G, or maybe 10 times, maybe even 100 times the force of 1G. Whatever's necessary so the passengers are not moved around or slam up against the inside of the flying saucer. Okay? That's how flying saucer works. That's how you restrain the passengers. Now, the interesting stuff is if you have gravitational field and you pulse it, pulse gravitational fields allow you to move atoms a fraction of their width, 1,000th or 100th of the width of an atom. So you're vibrating the atoms, every atom in something. Now, if you're vibrating it solid matter. Now the light would be able to pass through it. And if it's vibrating at the same frequency as the light would pass through. No light would reflect off the object to your eye. The object would appear invisible. Okay? Now, you can also pulse material in such a way that you would upset its bonds and no atom would be connected to any other atom. And you could dissolve the material, whatever material that is. Completely dissolve it. A slight breeze, every atom would just blow off in the breeze. Okay? Now, you can also take a pulsed field and shape two materials and pass one through another or pass one into another in any combination of any materials you want. And then you turn the device off and they would solidify in whatever recipe you used to combine them together. It could be copper, metal, aluminum, whatever materials you want to add to this. You just induce them in, vibrate them, shut it off, they're solid. Thus you can make the type of materials that they talked about in Roswell, the material you could crinkle up and it would unfold flat, or the material that was really, really thin, you could hit it with a sledgehammer. You wouldn't even be able to scratch it, much less dent it. Okay? So, now we know how to make the materials that they use to make a flying saucer. Now, to make a factory, you would take a large cigar-shaped craft. You take it into the asteroid belt where there's enough materials to make every human being on the planet worth like $3.5 billion. Somebody did the calculations. That's a lot of material just floating around. So you take this big cigar-shaped factory and you take it out to the asteroid belt. You use a gravitational field. You bring the material in. You vibrate the material. You turn it into dust or gas. You take it and put it into a great big sphere that's surrounded with what I call GEDs, gravity emitting diodes, and some of them push, some of them shake, and this chamber is huge. It pulls the materials in, swirls them around, pushes them into whatever shape you want, say the shell of a flying saucer. Then the vibration shuts off, the materials all combine, the gravitational field lowers it down, transports it out, more material comes in, the process starts all over again. And you make parts for flying saucers in this big sphere. And this ship would have multitudes of spheres, and you just make flying saucers. You probably could make it so one would come out, one finished flying saucer out the other end every minute. Now that's a future that I'd like to be part of, and I think most people would. And now that you know about it, you can start talking to people and try to figure out how we can do that. Okay? See you later.